Hello, my 92 subscribers and those who just enjoy a little bit of philosophy and video games, and welcome to HD Philosophy, the channel where we take some time with the classics to awaken the hidden dragon within all of you. And today is a special video because as I was playing Sparking Zero, I realized just how much Vegeta meant to me, and more importantly, what Majin Vegeta meant to me and still continues to mean to me as he awakens the weaknesses that exist inside of me, of which I'm going to share with you folks, because in very hidden dragon philosophy style, Plato and Aristotle came screaming to the forefront as I played through the Sparking Zero What If episode and then decided to rewatch Dragon Ball Z, and I'm going to share with you folks the philosophical ideas that are inherent in Majin Vegeta that I believe make him truly one of the great redemption characters in the story. Every art and every inquiry, and likewise every action and choice, seems to aim at some good, and hence it has been beautifully said that the good is that which all things aim. So this quote here from Aristotle is saying that all of our actions are deliberate actions, are agent-centric actions, not the one that is taken over by somebody else's mind or merely reactive. Deliberate action, what they call in Greek prohairesis, actual deliberate actions, are all aimed at some kind of good. So when you ask somebody, for example, why they do something, like I hate going to the dentist, but if somebody was to ask me why I'm going to the dentist, as well, you know, I have to get my checkup. Why do you have to get your checkup? Well, I have to get my regular checkup to make sure I don't have cavities. Why do you care if you have cavities? Eventually, if they keep asking why, you'll get to a terminus ad quem, an answer where it no longer sounds reasonable to ask why. And for Aristotle, all of our actions aim at happiness, happiness being the ultimate form of the good. So inherent in all of your actions is this aim that kind of scaffolds on one another, where you get to the supreme aim. And that supreme aim is good, the good. He's not saying all of your actions are good. It's just they have some kind of modicum of aiming at the good. Clearly, a person like Aristotle, who created virtue ethics, believes that you need to practice in acting good. Acting good is a tampering of your natural instincts. It's deciding something deliberately, not something instinctual. It's following the virtues to this point where you live well, because that's what Aristotle is focusing on, living well. And you can test this theory as well, because you can watch journalists go into prisons and ask prisoners why they did something, why they commit that murder, why they steal this, etc., etc. And other than the psychopaths that do it for the enjoyment of the crime itself, those who actually answer from a deliberate place of the choice itself, they all have a modicum of some kind of noble aim. All of them are doing it for a reason, good intentions. And you kind of see this in fictional works as well, like Breaking Bad, for example. Walter White is just trying to protect his family. Raskolnikov in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky tried to make sure Raskolnikov had all the noble reasons in the world to commit his heinous murder. He was trying to save his sister from like a sex slave kind of marriage, you know? And he goes and he murders the pawnbroker, and the entire story is a meditation on what happens when somebody breaks bad. So how this relates to Vegeta, though, is that in the beginning of the Babidi series, where he's actually starting to show signs of irritation, the first time we see that is during the fight with Deborah and Gohan, where he starts getting irritated that it is taking Gohan so long. And of course, Deborah realizes this and then leaves. But then we get a glimpse into Vegeta's irritation.
This whole thing would be over with right now if it wasn't for you. I hope you're proud of yourself.
What do you mean?
I mean, you disgraced us with your pitiful performance. There's no excuse for you fighting the way you did. You have Saiyan blood running through your veins. A warrior like Deborah should be dead. And now you're sitting here scratching your head, wondering what's next when it should already be finished. You are pitiful. Fighting with that soft, righteous look on your face. It's brute strength that determines the outcome of a battle, not goodness. The mighty survive and the weak perish. Your Piccolo and Krillin would turn to stone. That's because they're weaklings. Is that the kind of fate you want for yourself? Ugh. Garden statues! If they're lucky, someone will make a bird bath out of them!
Maybe Vegeta's right. If he'd fought Dabura, he might have destroyed him. Then Krillin and Piccolo would be restored back to their normal selves.
You see what's happening there? His focus is actually a noble aim, a good aim. He's chastising Gohan because it's like Gohan didn't realize what was on the line. Piccolo and Krillin's life was on the line. Now he's gone. They're still turned to stone. Your weakness led to this right here. You had the chance, if you had trained, if you kept your mind straight, if you kept your power straight, if you kept disciplined, you would have beat the boar like that and they would have been freed. But no, you messed around and now he's left and you might not get this chance anymore. Think about it. All actions aim towards some kind of good. Even though he may have the wrong means and he's chastising him in the wrong way, in this sense, I actually think he's doing the noble thing and he's doing the right thing here. I don't see anything wrong with him chastising Gohan because not only is this the right reasons, that's what a good friend does. They let you know where you messed up and remind you of what's on the line because we have a tendency to get one-tracked and one-sided as we're moving through life. So to me, this is like the friendship of the good from an Aristotelian point, where Vegeta is exactly what Gohan needs to get him back in the frame of mind he needs to be in to save his friends. However, we soon get to the immoral and I would say the excess of the anger of Vegeta in these clips.
I'm going to put an end to this thing once and for all.
Vegeta, what are you doing?
No more weak-hearted excuses, Kakarot. I'm taking control of this operation now. And for starters, I'm going to blow this ship to Kingdom Come. Now you listen to me. What happens to this planet is none of my concern. The strongest will find a way to survive and the weaklings shall perish. What kind of person are you?
So here again, you have a modicum of the good, right? Vegeta's like, why are we waiting around? Why are we waiting for these villains to do what they want? You realize they're villains, right? I'm just gonna blow this up right here and we're gonna keep moving down, or I'm just gonna blow up the entire ship and take away their strategy, you know? That is not a bad thing in and of itself. But see what happens. It's like his anger is building, his frustration is building, and it comes from a well-reasoned place into a very excess place where he's letting his passions take over. And then he ends up pointing the fireball at the Supreme Kai. And then Babidi strikes, right? So even though his actions were aimed at some kind of noble cause, i.e. not wanting to be the villain's puppet anymore, this is when he went too far. And what we have here is the beginning of what is the downfall and then the rise of the Prince of all Saiyans, brought to you by the analysis of Plato's doctrine, the Phaedrus. Now, in the Phaedrus, Plato is talking about the soul, or the just soul, and he gives us a beautiful metaphor of a charioteer trying to control two horses. Now you have the horse of the light, almost like considered the good horse. He is white with wings and he can listen, and his aim extends up to the heavens, which for Plato would be like a form of the good. So it is the just aim, the right aim. But then you have another horse, which is deaf and can only really react to the other horse, but leads the charioteer down into the material realm. And what he does is he labels this the spirited horse, the white winged horse that excels up to the heavens or tends to ascend up to the heavens as the spirited. And then you have the appetitive, which is the dark horse that brings an individual down into the ground, down into the muck. And one is only in harmony when the charioteer, who is reason incarnate, keeps the other two horses in harmony as they ascend up to the form of the good itself. There's a lot here, but the thing I really want you folks to take away is that how he labels the characteristics of the spirited and how they relate to Majin Vegeta. Because what is fantastic about this metaphor is that the spirited, among other things, includes pride and anger. That's right. Plato put pride and anger in the white horse, the white-spirited horse. The other one is the ones of the appetites, the ones that keep you locked down here in the material world. In order to understand this much better, you would have to go to something like the Phaedo, where you get an understanding of the philosopher's soul, the one where Socrates, through the mouthbox of Plato, is arguing why he doesn't fear death. And the argument he makes is philosophers, beings of reason, who want to seek truth, for their entire life, the appetites have kept them tethered down here, tethered to the world. When we need to eat, when we need to drink, when we need to have sex, all those types of appetites keep us dragged down. They drag down our ability to reason. More importantly, we're not free when they're dragging us down. We're not thinking clearly. When I'm extremely tired, there's no way I take a test well, right? My appetites have hostage my reason, you know? Also, at the same time, we know the spirits can take away your reason as well, but the appetites are much more powerful in their ability to subjugate us to the material realm, because what they rely on is material sustenance, okay? But think about the brilliance here. The fact that he put pride and anger in the white horse. It is here that we get the analysis of Vegeta and what came to a shock to me. Because as an individual who has an extreme temper, who's been chastised for his temper since I can remember, who does have a very strong ability to hate. What I realized when I watched Majin Vegeta and I read through the Phaedrus again was that Plato puts the anger in the spirited, not because anger in and of itself is a bad thing, but because anger that is not listening to reason is the bad. Anger itself can be extremely practical and pragmatic. And we analyze this by how Vegeta goes wrong. And thus we can awaken the hidden dragon within all of us on the right way to use anger. There's a fantastic article by Maria Jimenez that discusses the role of anger in the Platonic dialogues. And what I think she really gets right in highlighting where anger is a virtue and a vice in the Platonic dialogues is where anger can be redemptive. It can be reformative. It can reform your character, and it can give you the power that your will needs to identify your weaknesses and the anger associated with being ignorant or being fooled, so that way it doesn't happen again. It's almost like it energizes the will if it's aimed in the right direction. Where it goes wrong, though, is where it's extremely retaliatory, when it reacts to things and then just moves in the form of the reaction itself. You know, you could see that as one being unfree, not being able to decide their way. This is what often happens when you are so angry, you can't think straight. When you're so angry, you're gonna send that email, right? And what we're gonna analyze here is specifically how Vegeta's anger goes from the vice to the virtue. So in the vice, we have Babidi taking a hold of Vegeta's anger and pointing him in the direction that Babidi needs. Babidi wants the power to free Majin Buu. That is his goal. He doesn't care about Vegeta. He doesn't care about Deborah. He's using their vices to his end. And what's incredible is when Deborah realizes the anger that's in Vegeta's heart, Babidi ends up taking over Vegeta's mind and then giving him a direction, which was Goku. Now, to offer the olive branch, I do understand Vegeta let Babidi take him over, but I'm gonna highlight that in a little bit as well. Let's just discuss what anger does to an individual when it's retaliatory. When you're reacting to something, you're much like that dark horse. You're not listening to reason, you're just reacting to the situation and you're following that, you know? So there are these outside sources that are taking over your mind. They're enslaving you to the spirit that is anger. And it's like the more it happens, the less reason can contain you. You see? So clearly when somebody's mad, they're not thinking autonomously. They're a slave to that spirit. So that's one aspect. And you see it when Babidi subjugates him and then says, "You're mine now." Now, in the other instance, a lot of people would be like, well, Vegeta did decide to let Babidi do that. Well, that's why the spirited horse has ears to listen to reason. Because I don't know about you folks, but when I get extremely angry, my reason gives me all the reasons to be angry. I don't feel that I was given the right amount of prestige when I did something right. Some other coworker is given accolades over me, and it makes you upset, right? That individual cuts you off in traffic. How dare they do that? I should run them over. Isn't it better for society if I run them over? You see how reason becomes subjugated to the spirit? Well, Vegeta in that instance is like, well, yeah, I let him take me over. The same way we think we make perfect sense when we're angry. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten into an argument with my wife and I'm like, that's it, you know, I'm done. And I feel like I am thinking clearly when I do it, but I'm not. That spirited part has my reason, because every time, every single time, when I am calm and I think back at it, not only does the ring go back on, but I realize how much I was at fault, you see? But in the heat of the moment, I believe I'm making the ultimate choice, the best reason. One more, when I gave up smoking, I can't tell you how well or how strong my rational faculty started making great arguments for continuing to smoke. That's what can happen. Your passion and your spirit can subjugate your reason and bend it towards its will. And I feel like the Babidi section and the fact that Vegeta was saying he let him take over is just a clear-cut case of reason subjugated by the spirit, or in this case, anger and pride. So with the vice of anger, and all of the decisions that Vegeta has made up until this point, all of his sins, the arrogance, how his anger is misapplied, the artist comes up with a phenomenal way to kind of display that in a very symbolic fashion. Now, Aristotle, who I brought up before, talking about, you know, all actions aim at some good, he focused a lot on deliberate choices and how they affect your character. Now, character in the Greek comes from kerosene, and kerosene means to etch or to engrave. And the idea here is that every decision you make leaves a mark on your soul. You cannot live immorally outside of your workplace and be able to do well when you get to work. Your opportunities and your opportunities will be given to you based on your accolades and your achievements, you know? If you have a degree, how long you stayed at your former position, and things like that. That'll get you through the door. But your character, that's what allows you to stay. That's what allows you to progress. That's what allows you to get a raise. So your character is the most important thing, because it's not only the thing you're going to be judged by in the workplace, it's the thing that's static throughout your life based on the decisions that you make. And that etch and that tattoo is symbolized in the M that exists on Majin Vegeta's forehead. It's more than just Spopovich and Deborah, because we've had so much time invested in Vegeta. That M on Vegeta's forehead is a culmination of all the bad decisions he's made up to this point. That is why I love Majin Vegeta, because Vegeta's pride and his anger, which was misdirected, culminates into this decision right here, where an etch is marked right on his forehead for everyone to see. Now imagine if all of your sins existed in the same way, right? They may not exist on your forehead, but in Aristotle's opinion, they exist in your soul. There's no way you can perform immoral acts when you come home and then it's not going to affect your job. Every decision you make affects your being. That's why excellence is a habit. It's not a state, but is only gained by habituation, constant forming of your behavior. I always liken it to a forge, the metal being hammered out for its weaknesses. All the decisions you make are tattooed in your soul, in your very being. And it is represented here with the M on Vegeta's forehead. Now, there's another thing that often happens when somebody allows another to take over their will. I see this all the time when I was in college, and I saw people getting drunk, and they were able to act like an ass while blaming it on being drunk. Isn't that interesting right there? One of the great stories I read that highlights this perfectly well is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll actually chooses to become Hyde so that way he can lick the bones of sin. Such a great line in that story. It's like he's feeding off the sin of Hyde. And we see that in Majin Vegeta when he blows up the stadium. Because he blows up the stadium behind the identity of being subjugated by Babidi, but Goku sees past it.
Vegeta, certainly you didn't.
Goku not only says immediately, you let yourself do it. Because when Vegeta tries to offer his reasoning behind it, Goku realizes it immediately. Because Goku in Dragon Ball Z is the truth. He has the right frame of mind. Everybody else around him, their character progress only happens by realizing Goku is right. And it's just such a phenomenal section of the story. Goku realizes it as well and says, you let Babidi take you over, and you're killing all these people to goad me into fighting you. You see? So Vegeta was using the Babidi, existential Babidi possession to do the most abhorrent things to get what he wanted in very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde fashion. So far, what I've been discussing has been the culmination of the vices, of the retaliatory aspect of anger, how it reacts to things, and therefore isn't coming from within. It's not agent-centric. It is reacting to the environment. And in addition, what it often does is it blames other things. And that's another thing that we see, and it'll be the final thing we see before I get to reformative, just how Vegeta goes wrong and how him going wrong led to this anger that could be manipulated in this way. All of his anger was focused on things outside of his control.
It was at your hands that I suffered my first great humiliation, toppled by a piece of low-level trash. Imagine my added shame when it was you and not me who avenged our people by defeating Frieza. You, who were the first to achieve the pinnacle of our race. The first in 1,000 years to take a place among the Super Saiyans of legend. A place that I had been raised to believe was my royal birthright. And imagine the disgrace I suffered when the strength I had worked my whole life to acquire was surpassed by a mere child. Your half-breed son succeeded where I, the prince of all Saiyans, had failed.
His anger is completely focused on the reactions of the world. It is not going inside to see how he can reform his behavior. It's merely reacting to the outside based on what he believes he is owed. And that is the final vice. Because after this, we see Majin Vegeta demonstrate how anger can be used for not only retribution, to reform a person's behavior. After all of the sin, after blaming someone else for all his problems, he goes and he meets Majin Buu, which is the epitome of all his decisions that led up to that point, and the evil that he released onto the world. And he realizes, this is my fault. And that's where Vegeta ends up walking the road of redemption. Because his anger at Majin Buu is really an anger at himself for letting that creature out of the bottle. It is his anger at letting down Trunks. letting down his family, and his realization, and he's been blaming someone else for all of his issues. It's not that he gets rid of anger, everyone. It's just that the anger is focused in the right area, finally inward, to reform his character. So then how does Vegeta come out of this? How does Majin Vegeta go through the worst of Vegeta to the point it's marked on his soul to the best of Vegeta? Most Vegeta fans' favorite instance. Well, he moves the anger from blaming somebody onto himself. And in this final act, you see the greatness of the character.
Farewell, Bulma, Trunks, and even you, Kakarot.
He realizes his blessings. He owns up to his sin. And he participates in what makes this society one of the greatest societies on the planet. Voluntary sacrifice. The good is that which all things aim. And in this society, in order to achieve that good, you need to voluntarily sacrifice for the betterment of everyone else.
So with regards to the community, why is the community predicated on sacrifice? Because it's not about you, the community. Every step you take towards the communitarian means that you sacrifice something that's local to what you want here and now, right now.
I tell my kids all the time, you want to find a life of meaning? Find something you're good at, find something you enjoy, and find something that helps a lot of people. If you're good at it, you can start from an area of mastery, or at least an intermediate form of mastery, right? If you enjoy it, you'll reach the highest echelons where it's not fun anymore, but you're doing it because you still enjoy the other aspects. And then it needs to help a lot of people, because that's where we gather meaning. That is what the Judeo-Christian story got right. The foundation of society lies in voluntary sacrifice, because that's how we, as human beings, find meaning. Thank you all, those who joined the entire time. Thank you, though, for those who enjoy Majin Vegeta just as much as I do, and take some time with the classics, because they will awaken the hidden dragon within all of you. See you next time.